Chamber of Commerce breakfast, especially in its new Economic Forum format. DTE has sponsored this event since 2003 and maintained the top title sponsorship continuously over the last years. We've been a corporate member of the Michigan Hispanic Chamber since 2002 and look forward to continuing our positive relationship with Michigan's growing Hispanic business community. DTE Energy is headquartered in Michigan and believes that part of our role is to help boost our state's economy by providing reliable, affordable energy and creating jobs and capital investment through business expansion, retention, and attraction. After all, what's good for Michigan is ultimately good for all of us. Our company provides electrical and natural gas services to commercial and residential customers across the state. At DTE Energy, we serve a multicultural society that relies on us to meet their day-to-day energy needs while also planning for the future. This responsibility defines our relationships with our customers, our employees, and our shareholders, as well as with our suppliers that are essential to our success. Our commitment to supplier diversity is about inclusion, meaningful business partnerships, and fostering sustainable economic growth for small businesses, the sector that creates most of our nation's jobs. Through supplier diversity, we are prospering in partnership with some of our region's top-notch minority and women-owned firms. As a result, our company gets stronger, and our communities get stronger. In fact, 5 of DTE's top 25 suppliers, or 20%, are diversity businesses. Further, 17 minority-owned businesses, including 4 Hispanic firms, have multi-dollar, million-dollar plus contracts, not million-dollar, multi-million-dollar plus contracts with our company. We want our Hispanic supplier base to grow even stronger and recognize the value of the Michigan Hispanic Chamber and its membership as critical components to our long-term success. I'm going to take a second, though, to challenge you. I often hear so many of our suppliers saying, how do we enter all of these corporates? How do we get in touch? Well, first of all, I would challenge you to find your voice. A great way to get in touch with many of us is simply to join the chamber and be active in the chamber. And through this networking opportunity, if you don't meet me at DTE Energy or our supplier diversity group or ethnic marketing group, you'll meet someone who knows me, someone who knows Carla at Ford, someone who knows Reggie at GM. So I would strongly recommend that each of you take an active participation in the chamber so that you can broaden your own supplier base. We are going to actively look for you, but sometimes it doesn't work. And most of us are not just committed because of our positions at our companies, and because of what our companies stand for, but for most of us, I think that I can attest to most of the board, it's personal. We are personally invested in the Hispanic community. So I strongly urge that you take advantage of a really great opportunity as we progress in this country, but especially in the state of Michigan. Diversity is part of everything we do at DTE, and we know, again, that it benefits our customers and our shareholders. So we just, again, ask you, please find your voice. Please partner with us. We want to do business with you. Today, we have the great privilege of hosting the Honorable Sandy Baruah and Ellen Hughes-Cromwick as our distinguished panelists, and Cindy Goodacre, our moderator. We are looking forward to their comments a little later in the program. Once again, on behalf of DTE Energy, welcome to this 10th annual Michigan Hispanic Chamber Economic Forum Breakfast.
Thank you, Joanne. That was wonderful. And at this moment, I would like to call Dr. Isaiah McKinnon. Come and say just a few words here. Dr. McKinnon is the former Detroit Police Chief from 1994 to 1998 and has more than 39 years of experience in the public and private sector. Currently, he works for as the deputy mayor of Douglas administration here in Detroit, and is actively involved in the revitalization of Detroit with programs such as the Detroit Future City, which, by the way, I was checking the website. Dr. McKinnon is pretty neat. I think everybody should go and see it there. To say the least, Dr. McKinnon is an associate professor at the University of Detroit Mercy, and some remarkable trivia about him as a professor are that he has written 3 books, met 5 presidents, been with Oprah. I mean, come on. I think that's it, right? And have breakfast with issue this month too. So, Dr. McKinnon, thank you.
I really haven't been with Oprah. I met with Oprah. Let's not get that out there, you know. My wife would not appreciate that. Okay, I've been with Oprah. Okay. But the students at the university would love that. Now, 2 years ago, I was with Halle Berry, so that was... And I have a picture to prove it in my office, so if you want to come to my office, the mayor's office, there's a beautiful picture of myself that my wife lets me display of being with Halle Berry, and she said, so you spent 45 minutes with Halle Berry. And of course, it was at a wedding, and that's the way it is. But, so this last Tuesday, I was at a concert at Masonic Rodriguez concert. And Rodriguez, he had this wonderful way of describing Detroit. He said, some people call it the motherland, some people call it the fatherland. He said, I call it the mainland. And so, welcome to the mainland. This is my city. And this has been my city for over 60 years. And of course, I love my city. And as the deputy mayor of the city of Detroit, I love it even more. Because I've been through the trials and tribulations of what we've gone through, from a million, almost 900,000 people to where we are now. And what we're trying to do. I think that what we will see with certainly our administration and on behalf of Mike Duggan, the changes that we're trying to make and we will make. This is fun. I mean, at my age, to come back from a job as a professor at the University of Detroit University, and Mike said, saying to me, he said, you're going to be working some long hours. And as a professor at the university, long hours is teaching 2 classes. But to say that starting at 7 o'clock in the morning and then getting off at 11 o'clock at night, it's long hours. But you enjoy it because you know that there's some good and some wonderful things that you're trying to do. I really enjoy this. I enjoy the changes. I enjoy the fact that there are people who have this belief that things are going to change. I enjoy the fact that the lights are coming back on. I enjoy the fact that streets are being cleaned. I enjoy the fact that the response time of the EMS and things are changing. I enjoy the fact that we have this wonderful police chief that are doing things that never happened before. These are things that are changing about our city. So welcome to the mainland, our city. If you ever get a chance, please go and see Rodriguez. This guy's great. It's a wonderful concert. And again, on behalf of Mike and Duggan, thank you and enjoy. I've got to go to a meeting with the Chinese celebrities now, so excuse me. Off to Halle Berry.
Thank you so much.
My office.
Well, at this moment, I'm going to make an introduction to the public that's going to be watching us, well, listening online. I want to say thanks to Google and to all the online viewers. who are watching us through the Google Hangout and in partnership with the Accelerate with Google team. I hope that you enjoy this message carry on to success to yourself. I would like to introduce Cindy Goodacre, our moderator. Cindy is the Executive Director of the Cranes Detroit Business and has been with the news since 1985. Thanks to her leadership, the publication and website has won numerous awards. Cindy's passion is to promote journalism as a reliable source of communication, and she advocates for opportunities that benefit women and girls. Cindy holds a bachelor in journalism from Purdue University, where she was named to her fraternity, which I don't know how to pronounce, so I'm going to embarrass myself. You do that. And was part of the Iron Key, which is the Purdue President's Honorary. Cindy Goodacre, if you please use the honor.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm happy to be here for a lot of reasons today. One is that it's your 10th breakfast, and I'm just so honored to be part of that. Another is that it's a very exciting time to be in the city of Detroit. And the third really is that I'm not being asked to sing. And as good as I feel about that for myself, I feel even better about it for you. But we also have some wonderful panelists this morning. And so I'd like to introduce the first of them. Sandy Baruah, as you know, is President and CEO of the Detroit Regional Chamber, which he joined in 2010 after a long career in Washington, D.C. He served as George W. Bush's last administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration, and also was one of the senior officials helping to shape the federal government's response to the 2008 credit crisis and assistance to the U.S. automotive industry. Before he was at the SBA, he was a U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, led the Economic Development Administration, served as the Senior Advisor to Commerce Secretary Carlos Gutierrez regarding the 2010 census, and represented the U.S. at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. He's also worked in mergers and acquisitions and served in the administration of President George H.W. Bush and on the staff of U.S. Senator Bob Packwood of Oregon. Sandy?
Good morning, everyone. There we go. The crowd is awake. Well, it is a real pleasure to be here. Congratulations on your 10th anniversary for this really terrific event. And it is because it's your 10th anniversary, I'm going to forgive all of you for making me wear a tie on Friday. Got up this morning, put on a suit. My wife said, "Who died?" But it's a real pleasure to be here. But it's also an incredible pleasure for me to once again be with Ellen. In fact, Ellen and I got reintroduced to each other this morning. I had the pleasure of meeting with Ellen about 2006, 2007, when I was on President Bush's staff, and she and her colleagues at Ford and others in the region, including Center for Automotive Research, provided me some really great briefings way before the world ended in 2008, and those briefings really helped me when President Bush tasked me, along with several others in the administration, to help with the package that eventually became the assistance to the auto industry that we know are so important to this region and to the industry that we love. So Ellen, thank you so very much for giving your time and being here today. So fortunately for all of you, this morning's program is short on formal remarks by me, and there will be an extensive Q&A that Cindy will lead, and I really encourage you to direct all your top questions to Ellen, and I'll be sure to listen. But before we do that, let me just kind of share just three overarching thoughts about kind of where we are as an economy and where we are as a region. So just three thoughts before we move to the Q&A. Thought number one, Detroit's recovery is real. Having spent most of my career in Washington, I can tell you that as recently as the 1980s, Washington, D.C. was not the thriving, dynamic, cosmopolitan place that we see today. It took several things to turn that city around, primarily a major financial crisis that led to insolvency, hitting rock bottom as the murder capital of the country, a local government that had, let's say, its share of challenges. And that sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? But what turned that city around is exactly what's turning this city around. The arrival of strong, ethical, results-oriented leadership, the reemergence of an engaged business, corporate community, the reemergence of entrepreneurship, and the engagement of a strong philanthropic community. All of those things turned Washington, D.C. around. Those are the exact same things that are turning Detroit around. And it's not just Washington, D.C. New York City, Pittsburgh, and other cities experience similar crises that we see in Detroit now, but are now similarly thriving, and Detroit will be the next city on that list, I have every confidence. Number two, we have great reason to be optimistic, but we do have challenges. And while I'm exceptionally optimistic about what's happening, not just in Detroit, but across Michigan, and I had the option of either staying in Washington or going to New York, or frankly going back home to the West Coast, which is where I really grew up, I chose to come to Michigan and Detroit because I was so entranced with the opportunity that is here, and that is certainly turning out to be the case. But here's the challenges that we have. The challenge that we have as a region and as a state really can't be solved with a check, a program, or some law passed in Washington, D.C. or Lansing. Our challenges are primarily cultural. And here's what I mean by that. As a population, as Michiganders, as Detroiters, we really need a much greater value on education than we have had. Consider it how you want, K through 12 or K through adult, lifelong learning, early childhood education, it doesn't matter. We need a much stronger focus on education to compete and win in the 21st century, especially in the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Absolutely critical to our ability to compete and win. And to be perfectly frank, while we're so used to saying that America is number one, on the issue of education, other countries also on the cultural front, one of the biggest realizations for me, being an outsider coming to Michigan, is the surprising number of ways that Michiganders have found over the course of generations to slice and dice themselves from each other. Urban versus suburban, along racial lines, unions versus management, east versus west. We have found lots of ways to slice and dice ourselves. And to quote our friend John Dingell, we as Michiganders or Detroiters can't turn to each other and say, pardon me, sir, your end of the boat is sinking. We need a much greater sense of collaboration and community across our state and in our area. And third thought I'll leave you with is the global marketplace is more than just a talking point. We all know this is a business crowd. We all know, and we live it every day, this global marketplace. But sometimes we use the term the global marketplace like we use any buzzword that we use in business today, like synergy. We use it a lot, not quite sure what it really means, but we use it a lot because it sounds good, right? Here's what the global marketplace means to me. It means that as an American worker, or an American company, or a city or region in America, our competition is not, the guy or the gal next to us, or the city next door, or the company down the street, or even the state across the country. Our competition today is any person on any point on this globe who's got a good idea, a good education, and a good States, since what we built. We purposely built this flat global economy for all the right reasons. To raise living standards, to reduce the chance of armed conflict. All those things have essentially come to fruition. The one thing we've forgotten to do as Americans, as we have raised the standard of living across the planet, that we maintain one step ahead of everybody else. And this goes back to my first point, that we are not really focused on education the way we should, and we certainly need to do that. So these three things together, and particularly this point in our economic evolution, this point of where we are in terms of the global marketplace, this point of where we are in terms of the resurgence of Detroit and the state of Michigan, makes this point and this place perhaps the most exciting, the most opportune time to be anywhere at any time. And there's probably more opportunity out there for all of us as long as we're prepared. Thank you very much, and I look forward to giving you the opportunity to ask Ellen really tough questions.
Our next panelist, Ellen Hughes-Cromwick, is a Chief Global Economist at Ford Motor Company. She joined the company in 1996 and was promoted to her current job in 2004. Ellen manages the Global Corporate Economics Group with major responsibility for the company's global economic and automotive industry forecast used to support business strategy, finance, and planning. Before she joined Ford, she was a senior economist at Mellon Bank and assistant professor of economics at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. She also served for 2.5 years as a staff economist on the President's Council of Economic Advisors during the Reagan administration.
Great. Thank you. Hey, good morning. What a great turnout. Isn't this fantastic? And I just got to tell you, what an honor to come and talk to you today. I really, when you get those invitations, some of them you say, okay, that's part of my job. But I'll tell you, I was so excited. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning. And my husband had to go to Boston, so I got to the airport. And I was down here at 6 o'clock, and I was really looking forward to our time together. And, my role this morning is to give you a little bit of a summary of the outlook, the terrain, in terms of the economy. And I applaud you for having an economic forum, because we have so many opportunities in terms of the economy. Now, Sandy closed out his remarks with a few comments about global. And I'd like to share with you some really important developments globally. Much as we read in the financial news that the emerging markets are encountering difficulty, and we've had a lot of currencies in the major emerging markets decline and weaken substantially recently. But the overarching trend is that many countries, not just the big BRICS, but many emerging markets, are entering a period of economic development where they are growing their middle class, and they're growing rapidly. So underneath a lot of the cyclical ups and downs that we see in many of these countries, believe it or not, there's about 40% of the entire driving age population, so everybody that's age 15 or over, 40% are in these countries, 53 countries globally, that are accelerating in terms of the opportunity that they're providing to their people. And, it doesn't happen very often in economic history where you have this constellation of factors promoting growth and promoting economic development. We happen to be living in a period where this is taking place, and it doesn't last forever, because people go into the middle income, and then, as we know here in the States, and we know from watching Europe, a lot can happen in terms of the economic policies to begin to stop that maturation, and a policy can become increasingly important as you get the middle class growth, but then getting to a point of being newly emerged, or what we call in terms of our database, the maturing markets, emerging, maturing. Policy mix is critical. What governments do, what central banks do becomes very important. But let me just come back to this sweet spot in history. When an economy starts to grow their middle class, they begin to buy durable goods, they buy autos, they buy houses, they buy appliances, and it offers an opportunity for many of us who have a comparative advantage in offering those, not only those products, but the services that go along with that. And believe it or not, right now, this year, much as we read about softness in emerging markets, this year, globally, 85 to 90 million vehicles, new vehicles, will be sold globally. That's cars, utilities, trucks, small, medium, and large. 85 to 90 million. Think about the income and the wealth and the opportunity that provides. So my theme that I wanted to share with you in terms of global is go out and grab it. It's a great opportunity for everybody because it will be with us for at least a decade. Now, the second point I want to make in terms of the outlook for the U.S. economy is what a so-so economic recovery. I mean, talk about no pulse. We've been, believe it or not, at the end of this month, we are closing out 5 years of quote-unquote economic expansion. Can you believe it? 5 years. This expansion started in June of 2009, and we've had average annualized growth of 2.4%. Now that's about a full percentage point below what is typical. So, as we grapple with our local economy and, how inextricably linked we are to this national economy, we have to recognize that we are still in a very modest growth track. Now, this year we do expect growth in the U.S. to be about 2.5% to 3%, and the Michigan economy should be roughly in that range, even though we are running about a percentage point higher in terms of the unemployment rate. So now, a lot of questions around how long will this expansion last. And the one thing about business cycles is that expansions never die of old age. Something happens. And as you know from your experience, an oil price shock, if oil moves up to $150 a barrel very rapidly, then, that causes some reduction in economic activity. But also policy mistakes can cause the end of an expansion. And then the third major reason is that we have movements in confidence. We have waves of optimism, i.e. investors buying Italy's bonds today. Or we have waves of pessimism. So that is also another reason. But I would suggest to you that with a 2.5% to 3% economy, and hopefully, gaining some momentum, we'll start to see better employment growth. And many of you know, right now, employment growth is running about 1.7%. Wage growth is about 1.9%. We need to see much more in order for not only the national economy, but our economy here to thrive. And of course, as you know, the auto sector has been one of the strong suits in the economy since the financial crisis. In fact, statistically, 13 cents out of every additional dollar of GDP is related to automotive production. The multiplier for employment for autos, as you know, according to the Center for Automotive Research, is 10. So for every plant job in autos, we expect to see 9 other jobs, either in other goods industries or service producing industries. So we have really come back to health. We have a growing competitive mindset, and I think that offers up tremendous value for our local economy. So with that, I don't want to overextend my time. I think Cindy is going to moderate some Q&A. Thank you.
We have some questions to start off with, but we're most interested in your questions. So there are cards at the table that you can write them down on, and someone will be around to pick them up. Also, I just wanted to let you know that Sandy has to leave very promptly at the end of this session because he has another speaking engagement. And so if you see him duck out, it's not because the questions got too tough to him.
Don't rule out that possibility too.
I was trying to give you some cover. But anyway, here's a question for both of you. Michigan has 11,000 Hispanic-owned businesses ranging from mom and pop shops to mid-sized companies, of which only 300 are registered as minority certified, but they generate $4 billion in gross sales. What is your opinion on how minority-owned companies can best position themselves to become part of the supply chain of larger companies?
Please.
No, I think, you gave a great introduction, and I couldn't agree more with your perspective on that. Outreach, networking, ensuring that you've got a great competitive business equation, and it is just, blocking and tackling, moving out there, developing the right leads, and being very proactive. I couldn't really add any more to your perspective on that. That is a tried and true approach.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that, because I think we know what the recipe is for success, in that space. One of the things I did when I ran the Small Business Administration is that I was actually responsible for the federal government's minority contracting monitoring. And interesting process. And I know, essentially firsthand how difficult it is to be certified to work either in the federal government, state government has its own rules, the corporations obviously have their own rules as well too. But if you can take the time to do that, it is hugely beneficial. Because, when I was in government, I got pitched for business. The first question, I would ask is, are you certified? They said no. So, well, listen, even if, we all thought that you had the best product, the best value, and that's the threshold, right? You've got to bring the best product and the best value first, right? It's not what your status is, but even if you had the best product and the best value, if you weren't certified, the time it takes, the contracting period would have been over. So take the time to do it and reap the benefits as time goes on.
Are minority-owned companies at the table participating in current economic development initiatives led by the state or local governments? If not, how can they become part of that conversation?
Probably sounds like a easy question. Yes, absolutely. What we find, so our organization, the Directorship Chamber, we're responsible for the regional economic development activity for all of Southeast Michigan. We work with counties, we work with municipalities, we work very closely with the governor and the MEDC. And so when we travel internationally, we take businesses with us. And the international marketplace not only wants to know, they need to know that the businesses that are already here are not only high-tech, not only well-run and doing well, but they are diverse. And that's important for a whole bunch of different reasons. One, smart companies know, and I know this is something that Ellen and I were talking about before the program got started. Smart companies like Ford know that the stronger their diversity is in their supply base or in their talent base, the stronger the company is, the stronger the product is. And that's not just an American ethos. It's not just a Detroit or auto company ethos. That is an international ethos. So we can't go to the international marketplace by presenting just kind of one segment of the Michigan economic picture. We have to present a whole diversified picture. That makes our job a lot easier.
Technology improvement and innovation is increasingly driving growth in the automotive industry. When you look at this trend, where do traditional manufacturing businesses fit, and what new business opportunities are projected?
Yeah, Cindy, I think there probably is no such thing as a traditional manufacturing industry anymore. I mean, we are all in the technology sector in some respects. It really revolutionizes the way that we're able to do business. So in manufacturing, as you know, there are significant research and development efforts in the area of not only the electrified vehicle, but the connected vehicle, and how that can offer up more value for our customers. So technology is part of every aspect of not just manufacturing, but all of the service-producing industries. And I haven't even mentioned the way that it is affecting marketing and distribution channels. So in sub-Saharan Africa, most people have mobile devices, they have phones. Marketing and selling vehicles in sub-Saharan Africa is also a technology proposition, as it is in India, where there are many different ways that the Indian consumer with the technology is connecting to understand and educate about the kind of products that they want to buy. So it's integral to our ability to excel and to be competitive.
So can I just jump
Sure,
on that?
absolutely.
Just a couple things I'd like to add to that, and Ellen, if I'm right here. So one of the things that I think most people in this room know that roughly 75% of the cars that we drive, and they have a Ford badge on it or a Toyota badge, whatever badge it has on it, is not made by Ford or GM or Chrysler or Toyota or whatever. It's made by a myriad of Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 suppliers that are out there. So that's a huge opportunity to get part of that supply chain, what we were talking about earlier. But the flip side of that is, the way that the automotive industry has done such an exceptionally good job of globalizing. And, of the domestics, Ford has definitely done the best job of that. I mean, look at a Ford Focus. Ford Focus sold in America is largely the same product that you get just about anywhere else in the world. So that means as a supplier, you have to be willing and able to provide that quality product to that global suppliers. You can't just have one supplier for one part, and for the American focus, it needs to be kind of a global thing. Is that right? And that's what I hear from suppliers a lot. That there's a greater opportunity to take advantage of small businesses in the supply chain, but you have to be ready to go.
Yeah, and in fact, as you know, we have revolutionized our product development system. So in prior periods, we would have 3 separate engineering centers for the focus. We've now globalized many, and indeed nearly all of our platforms. Is that certainly the case?
Yes.
Can you maybe speak to the minimum wage increase and the impact on small business in Michigan? And there's a special interest on the retail and restaurant sector.
I will say from an economic standpoint, there are many research studies that have provided not only very good fundamental reasons for raising the minimum wage, and also many studies that suggest that it would diminish
the opportunity, especially by adding additional costs for small businesses. In general, I guess I would say, how about if we focus more on a wage that allows people to be productive and to accommodate a lot of their needs on a day-to-day basis, the so-called living wage. So I think here, the research is mixed, but there are potential solutions that we could be working on with regard to how can we make sure people have a living wage.
How do you see the growth in Mexico benefiting the U.S. and the region in regards to automotive manufacturing?
Excellent. I met with about 100 dealers in Phoenix and LA. These business people are very well positioned to take advantage of the excellent growth potential in Mexico. Many of you, I'm sure, have read about the potential additional investment opportunities in the oil sector in Mexico, and the constitutional reform that is now in train and will offer up additional benefits. That, coupled with other structural reforms, are offering higher growth potential in Mexico and significant opportunities for our businesses to engage and expand their business in Mexico. So I think that is a significant upside in the next 10 years.
And a related question to that is, what's the current state of commerce between the U.S. and Latin America and the outlook for that?
Well, another headline out there, of course, is this severe situation in Argentina and Venezuela. Two great countries that, again, have wonderful labor force and great potential. But here's, two examples of where policy has adversely impacted the economy and therefore their society and their ability to grow. We're now in the middle of recessions in both of those countries with hyperinflation, which means inflation above 10, 20, 30%. We've seen over a 50% devaluation in the currency in Venezuela, and really a collapse of the underpinnings. So policy has to change, the politics and the policy have to change to renew those countries as they go forward. Now look at the Pacific coast in South America, Chile, Peru, Colombia. Excellent transitions that those economies have underway and excellent growth fundamentals. So it is a mixed picture, Cindy, in that regard.
Sandy, how can the Chamber promote in specific, innovative ways regional collaboration between local and regional government entities and businesses?
So I think we're doing that. One of the things that we started when I walked in the door in 2010 is that we got all the counties together very quietly and said, at the very least, let's stop having one county take a trade mission to China and another county follow 2 months later and talk to the same people. Not only did we look disorganized, we were disorganized. And it's funny, because I've never lived in a place where counties were as big a deal as they are here in Michigan. Counties are a power center here. Where I grew up on the West Coast, I'm not sure people really knew what county they were in. It really didn't matter. So that was it was a new thing for me. And also, the county form of government is really something that only the United States has. So it really doesn't translate well internationally. So when someone goes and says they represent a county in China, the best translation is village. So basically, it's like the village king has come to visit us here in China. And it wasn't exactly the best message. And even when we represent Southeast Michigan as a whole, which is depending on count, 5+ million people, that's a really good neighborhood in some areas of China. So we, you have to kind of put all this into perspective, and that worked out really well. So we have, and actually BTE's in the room. I want to thank BTE. We have a CEO council co-chaired by Jerry Anderson at DTE, Nancy Schlichting at Henry Ford Health System, Chip McClure, the former chair and CEO of Meritor, who have bring together on a regular basis the county executives and all of the senior business leaders, the CEOs or the presidents of the major companies that are actively engaged in economic development in Southeast Michigan. And we meet on a regular basis to make sure that those lines of communication are open. We also now have a shared calendar of travel. So we have eliminated very quietly but very effectively Bob Fatano going to China and Bruce Patterson following, 2 months later. That just doesn't happen anymore. We've been able to take care of that. We as a chamber, we we're the lead along with the Right Place, which is based in Grand Rapids, for all of the governor's trade missions. So when the governor travels to Europe or to China, we're not only with him on those trips, we actually organize most of those trips. And so we're able to kind of create a cohesive message to international audiences that's working very well. We have a ways to go. We as a region are still not as unified as we need to be. I kind of mentioned that in my more formal presentation. But we've made tremendous progress. If there's any silver lining to the bankruptcies that occurred in 2008 and the world ending in 2008, is that anyone who thought that we can continue business as usual, either as government entities or as companies, they really kind of realize now that we've got to do differently going forward.
If immigration reform takes place, would it have an impact on the auto industry, given that a population that currently doesn't have access to credit would have better access to that, and so be better able to buy cars?
Well, here you're going to come back to some of the economic research on that, and free trade and the ability to have a mobility between countries has been shown to help in terms of economic growth and economic activity. So I think the conclusions there are very straightforward. It's a plus.
In favor of immigration reform, smart, comprehensive immigration reform. I worked on it when I was in government in 2005, and we beat that issue until it was long after it was clear that the president was losing that battle. There are two aspects to the immigration battle. One, there is the illegal immigration challenge, and if you're depending on where you are in the country physically, you have a different view on that. The issue that we're really focused on is keeping highly skilled immigrants in our country. And I don't want to speak for Ford specifically, but the companies that we work with on a day in and day out basis are constantly saying that, listen, we have a skills gap in our company. We have great jobs, well paying. I mean, $70,000 a year, $80,000 a year jobs for engineers and other highly skilled positions. And we're training those people in the United States today. They're coming to the University of Michigan, they're coming to universities all across this country, and then we send them home. Then we send them home, we educate them, in the best, the U.S. education system, higher ed system, is still by far the best in the world. And then we send them home to compete against us. And it used to be that, if you wanted to be with a successful, innovative, global reach company, you really had to be in North America or some European countries. Now we're seeing that these companies are coming from all corners of the globe. So they can take those talents and go home and be successful. We need to keep them here. And so we desperately need to fix that. That will not only help drive our economy, It'll help our companies right here in Michigan do better because they'll have a better pool of talent to access, and that'll help them become more competitive.
Are there one or two programs coming on or in process that will help improve the economy in Detroit and create jobs?
That's probably me as well too. Where's Ike when we really need him, right? Programs again. Certainly, the new mayor we work very closely with is doing some really fabulous things. But really, what government can do, at the local level or at the state level, or certainly the national level, is just really create the environment. Create the environment for entrepreneurs to thrive. Create the environment for companies to be successful. To create an environment where talent is attracted to. If government can do those three things, the economy will flourish. But what government can't do is really create a long-term successful jobs program. They can create the environment, but they can't actually create the jobs, because if government creates jobs, so I spent a lot of time in government, right? Worked for 2 presidents, one U.S. senator. We could create jobs through a federal jobs program, but then it's just you paying me to pay someone else who's then back paying you. You're not really growing the economy in any really meaningful way. So you need the private sector to grow, and government to create the environment. They really can't create the jobs.
Ellen, do you have a prediction for interest rates going forward and how that would affect or should affect how we should think about the national debt?
Well, we all enjoyed a very long period of extremely low interest rates. And as you know, even today, the 10-year bond yield is trading below 3%. And if you were in the market for a mortgage even 10 years ago, you know that is an extremely low rate. Mortgage rates now are at about 4.3%, and did move up, as you know, about a full percentage point about a year ago when the former Federal Reserve Chairman Bernanke began to telegraph that at some point in the future they would have to start to remove all the substantial monetary stimulus. Now, where are we today? Today, we are in a position where the Fed has now reduced their financial asset purchases to $45 billion a month. That started on May 1st. They are on a track to lower that to zero, likely by November. So at the October Monetary Policy Committee meeting, they likely will say, okay, as of November, we are no longer going to be purchasing financial assets. Now that doesn't mean that they're going to start selling financial assets. And if you go on their website, you'll see that the Federal Reserve is now holding $4.3 trillion of assets. And in normal times, it's $800 billion. Now, this sounds like a long-winded answer to your question, but that's really critical. We are going to get through this period where they will reduce the amount of asset purchases, and the policy officials have told us that they will likely start raising interest rates next year. So a year from now, 15 months from now, we'd start to see some interest rate increases. Of course, investors can make decisions about how many U.S. Treasuries they'll buy, and we should likely see them expect that interest rate increase, and therefore long-term interest rates could be moving up a little more and probably in advance of that second, third quarter of 2015.
How can we balance the highly skilled immigrant wave with immigrants who are still building their skills in order to avoid a state of classism?
That's a really good one.
So it's a tough one, so it goes to you. Go ahead.
But Sandy, you spoke to that because the point about education is absolutely critical. Training and education are so vital to our economic success and family success. Without the training, the skills, the education, we know that our opportunities would be far more limited.
Yeah, I think, and the reason I focus on education so much is, one, obviously it's an economic issue, right? We need it as a country, we need it as a company, but also it's an incredible human issue, because there really is no other ladder to move from one social class to another social class, or one economic class, excuse me, to another economic class, without the education ladder. And our education ladder in the United States is, I don't know if it's broken, but it's it's missing a few rungs, right? And that is a huge challenge for us, because look at the age that we live in. We live in the internet age, and that's not just a talking point. Think about what that means. It means that internet commerce has achieved what social justice advocates have been trying to achieve for generations, right? Because internet commerce is a platform that is age agnostic, it is gender neutral, and it is colorblind. It really just cares about what value are you bringing, to the marketplace. So that's based on skills. It's just based on skills. So, when you talk about people who are developing their skills, that's absolutely critical. If they're trying to develop their skills through, basic labor jobs that this country was built on, maybe, 70 years ago, those jobs simply don't exist, not just in America, they just don't exist anymore. And that number is going to continue to dwindle. And so, that's why, if, the team that has the best skilled group, I don't care if it's a family or it's a company, a city or a country, they're going to thrive. And, one of my favorite examples, I'm sorry I'm rambling here, is, look at Minneapolis. Minneapolis is one of the best educated regions in the country. And despite being one of the highest taxed areas in the country, they're thriving, they're doing great. But they're bringing their A game when it comes to education, and they've been doing it for 20 or 30 years now. And that has been completely bipartisan. They've gone through some pretty nutty politicians in Minnesota, but the one thing that they've said we are not, budging on is that we're going to continue. Democrats and Republican governors, or a couple independents thrown in there just to be interesting, because we're going to continue to invest in education.
And then our final question. I wish we had more time, but we promised to get you out of here on time. When we have people from other countries that we educate in the U.S., does that hurt minorities in the U.S.? In other words, is it zero sum? And why don't we train minorities in the U.S. for job shortages? Maybe non-traditional training?
So the answer is, and there's incredible data to back this up, that immigrants create jobs, they're not job takers. And I can't, maybe you know the number off the top of your head, it's a number I should carry with me. I think it is 3 or 4 to 1. So for every immigrant that comes in that is well-trained, creates a job, there are 3 to 4 Americans that get hired because of that. When you look at the technology boom that the world has gone through, which was obviously led by the United States, which were started out west where I grew up, right? The numbers fluctuate, but anywhere between 7 to 8 of every 10 technology startups were started by someone who was foreign-born. Think of the incredible job impact there. So immigrants are not a job taker, they're an incredible job creator.
Okay, well, thank you, and Camilo has some parting words.
Thank you, Cindy. Please join me with a round of applause. This is exactly how appreciation for the Ladies first. Don't run for cover. Now, personally, you know, you know what? I said that in the committee, and they said, no, it's a man. That can never happen. All of you committee members, trust me, okay? We're going places. But anyhow, I got to something really good that you guys are going to enjoy.
All perfect?
Well, we've done it down a little bit. But some good caps here. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all very much.
Well, ladies and
Yeah.